What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and now officially, I'm the co-host and co-producer of the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care. Now, people said, that sounded like what you said before. I said, no, it's different. Because what we're doing now, we're actually in pre-recording phase. We're actually doing one-on-one or one-on-one and group conversations with fathers all around the world. So in the past, we do conversations with experts, service providers, etc. These are just now one-on-one conversations with fathers, and it's the only online show of its type that's sponsored by Dove Men Care. So there could be shows about fatherhood out there, and there are many, kudos, but this one we're working on is the only one sponsored by Dove Men Care. So there, we secured some bag. Let's leave it that way. Okay. All right. So we do that. Now, for those who don't know, we've got a long-time friend with us today, Serena Wills. I could read through the bio, but you know what? I like to hear laughter. So she can tell a little bit about herself. And if you don't know what she's all about, just go to the Dr. Vibe website, put in Serena Wills, enough conversations. Enough conversations.
That's true.
So, I'm just going with the flow because we had a little hiccup at the beginning, but, we just work with it. We walk with it.
It's all good.
We work with it. So
we're here.
Serena's going to be sharing with us tonight about Lyme Disease Awareness Month and Lyme disease. But first and foremost, how are we doing today?
I am good. I'm better. If this would have been last Wednesday, I would have called you to cancel because we were all sick in here. So I am a lot better.
Wow.
A lot better. It all starts with those 10-year-old germs that come home and,
wow.
Even with masks on and stuff, kids still, they're touching stuff. And, I know in different states, especially out here in Virginia where I am, it's now an option to wear masks. So my son, he wears a mask every day, all day, but there are kids who do not. So he caught something and I caught it and passed it on to someone else. And we were in here for a few days. It was we were COVID negative. We tested negative. Twice we tested negative, but it was like a really severe, almost like strep throat type. And, and of course with me, because my immune system is compromised, I got it the worst. So fever and all kinds of other stuff that came along with this. So I'm a lot better. Blessed, highly favored, as you say.
Yes, blessed, highly. I forgot to say, blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem.
Yes.
So before we go any further, Helena.
Hi, Helena.
Greetings, Dr. Vibe and Serena Wills.
Thanks for
stopping by. Well, you know what? There's still a large segment of the population that does not know what Lyme disease is.
Yes.
So can you break it down for us? What is Lyme disease?
Sure. And always thank you for inviting me to your platform. I'm on your show. I was looking at the years here, and like this August will be like 4 years.
You're kidding.
Yeah, it was that first show was like August 2018. Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed the ride. Hope you have.
Because I always associated with the year I met Tara. So that was the year I had my first show was with you, and the second show was with her. That's when we brought her on board. So that's how I remember. But it's been almost 4 years. It's crazy. Wow. Really crazy. It's a good crazy. But
absolutely. Good trouble.
Good trouble, yes, good trouble. So Lyme disease, and just to tell people a little bit about why I am here talking about Lyme disease awareness. It is May. May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. And, here in the United States and even globally, we honor and we just take a time out to really pay closer attention and just really spread the gospel and talk. We're always talking a lot about Lyme disease. When I say we, I'm talking about advocates, the doctors who do believe in Lyme disease, because we have some out there who are still in disbelief, and those caregivers, those who are survivors, like myself, I'm a Lyme disease survivor. I have chronic Lyme disease. And we just use May to just blow the rooftops off and just tell people what this is and how to be careful. If ticks, of all things, tiny ticks, can do this to you. And just really just to spread the awareness just about treatments, what's not being covered, which a lot of our treatments sometimes are not being covered. So we're battling insurance companies, all the multitude of misdiagnoses, which I'll talk about tonight. I'll talk about my own misdiagnosis, and the list goes on. But Lyme disease, what it is, because a lot of people are like, how do you get it? It is contracted by a tick. A tick is a very tiny insect, almost looks like a spider. And for those who, have like arachnophobia or whatever, I'm so sorry, but this is just what they look like. Some ticks are so tiny that the naked eye can't see it. So you can have it embedded in your arm, your leg, your scalp, because let's say you're under a tree or just, laying in the grass, because it's that time of year, spring, it's getting warm out here. And, dogs or, your pets are out there, they're bringing in the ticks, they have the tick collars, but sometimes these tick collars don't even work for the dogs. So they're bringing them in the house. And like a few people, I actually met a few pet owners said they actually got the infected ticks from their dogs, because the dogs come and you're laying in your bed next to you and you're rubbing your dog, and all of a sudden you have a tick on you. And you sometimes don't even realize the tick is on you until it's too late. So what the ticks do, and this is not all ticks, because everybody always asks me, is every tick infected with, the bacteria. The bacteria is called Borrelia, which is what causes Lyme disease. Unfortunately, ticks also carry the cousins, I call them, of Lyme disease. They're called co-infections. So we have Bartonella, Babesia, and a list of co-infections that really cause even more of a disarray in your immune system. And there's just a laundry list of co-infections that sometimes go hand in hand with Lyme disease. So, for me, for example, it was September 2012. So this September, I'm coming up on my 10th anniversary of being bitten by a tick and contracting Lyme disease. And I was one of several people in the group. We took a walk. I was with my old job, and there were two ways to take this walk. And my intuition was telling me stay on the paved path away from trees and bushes. That's the way I usually walk. I used to be a marathon runner.
Okay.
So I ran 5 marathons, a multitude of 5Ks, 10Ks, 15Ks. And I was actually in training for my 6th marathon when I got bitten by this tick. So I had to I was all signed up for the marathon, and I had to actually tell my coach and everything, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm super sick suddenly, and I don't know what it is. When we figure this out, I'll come back. And it has been almost 10 years. I have not ran since. So I was bitten out of a group of people. We went the path that had all the bushes and the trees, and they're like, oh, come this way. It's such a beautiful way to go, Serena, you'll really enjoy it. And I remember, trying to stay away from all these bushes, and I'm dodging and I'm going back and forth. And on my right arm, it brushed up against like a bush that was like kind of hanging outward. And not too long into the walk, I realized I had a bug attached to my arm. It almost looked like, I didn't even know it was a bug initially. It looked like one of my beauty marks, as my mom calls it. She calls it. So I was like, oh, never knew I had a beauty mark here. So it looked like a beauty mark. That's how small it was. And I realized it's a bug. And it wouldn't come off easily. I had to like pry it off of me. And I still kept walking. It just left like a normal bite. When I say normal bite, like a mosquito looking bite. It did not leave what is called the traditional bullseye rash. That's what people look for. That's what doctors look for when you get bitten by a tick. Oh, you have the bullseye rash. It looks like the Target emblem. No offense to Target, but it looks like the Target. No offense to the store. I love me some Target, but I didn't have it. And also, close to 70% of people who get bitten by ticks don't get the bullseye rash.
Okay.
So you can get bitten by a tick and not know it because you don't have this bullseye rash. So a very small percentage of people get it. So what it does is it now, and I mean, as tiny as this tick is, it has this bacteria that is now going into your bloodstream, it goes everywhere. Let's just say that. It doesn't just go to your bloodstream and you say, I'll just do like hydrotherapy, get my blood cleaned and get this thing out. It goes everywhere in your body. In my case, it got so deep in my system that it attacked my central nervous system. And
my goodness.
And it got into my brain. So it goes everywhere. It is known as the great imitator, the great mimicker in the medical community, in the Lyme disease community. It can mimic an assortment of autoimmune disorders, illnesses, sicknesses, even down to the flu. It could mimic the flu. And now we have COVID. So guess what Lyme can now mimic? It can mimic COVID. And because there's some similarities in the symptoms, until you realize this is not COVID, this is Lyme disease. So it could really just look like something, but it's really not that something. And that's where all the multitude of unfortunate misdiagnoses come from, because doctors just look at you and based on your symptoms think, oh, you have pneumonia, your lungs don't sound too good, or maybe you have asthma. Those were actually my first two misdiagnoses, asthma and pneumonia. And
I just want to misdiagnose.
Now, mind you, this was my first doctor's appointment. I'll never forget. It was October 1st, 2012. She was a great doctor. She was just trying to figure it out. And after I told her I'm a marathon runner, I think I would know if I have asthma. And I African dance 2 to 3 times a week. I travel the world.
Wow.
I've never had a breathing episode except for like bronchitis once in a while, but not to the point where I'm so short of breath where I was out for a run with my son. He was only 1 at the time, and he was in his running stroller, and we're out doing my usual run. Now, usual for me was 6 miles. That was usual for me. So I'm only 1.5 miles out on the trail, and I could barely breathe. I could not catch my breath. I'm with my son. He's 1. And I'm like, oh my God, if something happens to us out here on this trail, I have my son. This is not good. So I had to slowly catch my breath. I got some water. There were some other runners along that trail that were like, are you okay? Do you need attention? I was like, I'm okay. I said, maybe it's just too hot out here. This has never happened to me. I'm just going to walk back to my SUV real slowly and just figure this out and just rest. And that was actually about 2 weeks after I got bit by a tick. So one of the first symptoms was shortness of breath, and I had this weird cough that was what they call an unproductive cough. You're coughing, but nothing's coming up, but you could hear something rattling inside you. So I'm like, well, what is this? So I'm thinking, well, it's about to be fall. The seasons are changing. Maybe I just caught a cold. So it just snowballed. But the first 2 misdiagnoses were asthma and pneumonia for me. And then, and then they were like, oh, maybe you're just really stressed. So I went to another doctor. So she was blaming, maybe you have a stress disorder. And, you've been really stressed. You lost your mother the other year. It might be some anxiety. So those were the next 2 misdiagnoses after the first 2, stress disorder and an anxiety disorder. And it just kept going on and on and on. But yeah, this happens to not just, there's thousands of us out there who are misdiagnosed. And some of us are treated for the misdiagnosed disease or disorder for years before they realize they have Lyme disease. Years. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just politely interrupt. So yes, during your journey, you were misdiagnosed. When did you know you were diagnosed correctly?
Okay. Yeah, it's funny, it's on my notes. So and I love it when people say, oh, I think you're exaggerating. And hey, how you doing, Margaret? I love when people say, oh, you're probably exaggerating. My doctor will say, oh, I have the notes. I have all 10 misdiagnoses that she got between October 1st, 2012 and mid-December 2012. That was only a 2.5 month span. I was misdiagnosed 10 times. Now,
how many?
10. 10.
Who eventually got it right?
It was my doctor. It was my integrative health doctor who I met Thanksgiving week 2012. So she came in when I was misdiagnosed 8 times already. And she was introduced to me through a beautiful friend I went to college with, who said she found this great doctor through Groupon. Out here we have Groupon where you can go online.
Yeah.
And she said, because there was something going on with her. And she said, Serena, I'm reading your Facebook post in the middle of the night. You've been sick for a long time. And how do you go from being a marathon runner, an African dancer, a spoken word artist, performing, a very active mom? I was taking swim classes with my son. We were doing baby and me swim classes too, being practically bedridden overnight. How does this happen to you? So she referred me to her doctor. And I literally called my doctor. I'll just refer to her as Dr. M. I called her on a Tuesday morning. It was Thanksgiving week. And, I was like, she probably won't be able to see me for a month or two, And she said, and she happened to actually pick up the phone that day. She never picked up the phone. She picked up the phone because the person at the front desk, they were low staff because it was Thanksgiving week. And the person went to lunch or something. And I was able to talk to her. And she said, I have an opening at 3:00. Can you be here today? And I'm like, it'll take me some time, but I will be there. And I drove to Washington, D.C. I'm in the Northern Virginia area, for those who don't know. And I could not even sit up in a chair. I was so fatigued and tired just from that drive. This is just a 25 minute drive. I was laying on her couch in her office, in the waiting room. And I was like, I know people probably think I'm crazy, but I can't even physically sit up because the fatigue was so great. It was just a wave that just kept just knocking me down.
Mm-hmm.
So she told the receptionist and her nurse, please get this woman some water. Please, come into my office. I sat in her office. I kid you not. I didn't leave there until 7:00 at night. And she said, we're going to figure out what is wrong with you. So whatever happened to you has really impacted your immune system. But she says something's going on with your central nervous system. Because I told her one side of my body feels weaker than the other. One side of my face felt like the muscles were going weak. And she said, no. She was like, I don't think you had a stroke. But she said after, she was like, I want to get you in for an MRI of your brain and spine. But she said, there's something going on systemically in your body that is wreaking war on your body. It's like it just dropped an atomic bomb and just flew away and just left you to figure things out and pick up the pieces. And I had a pile of doctor's notes from all the doctors I had seen that misdiagnosed me. So I have a pile of paper for her, and she's reading through all of them. So by that time, I was misdiagnosed with, I already said, asthma and pneumonia. And I was misdiagnosed with the flu, pleurisy, lupus, ALS, anxiety disorder, and a stress disorder. And then after that was 2 more misdiagnoses after she diagnosed me. Well, actually, no, one came in right before the diagnosis, one came in after. The clincher was the week I went back in after Thanksgiving and had an MRI of my brain and spine. They found 13 lesions in my brain and inflammation of my brain. And I'm like, wait a minute, time out. What are you talking about? And they said, we need you to go back to get another MRI, because the first MRI was done without contrast dye. So for those who don't know what contrast dye is something they inject in you to paint the picture clearer, so they can see a clearer picture of what's happening. because the without contrast, they could see lesions, but they were very cloudy. They couldn't see what they were exactly, So the contrast dyes, you're able to like hone in on like where things are, how big these lesions are. So I had to go back the same week, Dr. Vibe, for a second MRI of my brain and spine within the same week. So one day I'm in there, I'm going back in there another day. And it was after that second MRI is when the radiologist said, very worrisome for this age group, possible diagnosis of multiple sclerosis.
Oh my goodness.
And I nearly passed out in my doctor's office. I just started sweating bullets. And she said, let me get you some water. And she said, you don't have multiple sclerosis. I think, she said, no, I think, I know what you have. This is without any blood work being done. And she said, I've been studying all the notes that you've been giving me because, I'm a writer. So I was journaling every symptom I had, when they came on, how I felt that day. So I shared with her my journal notes. And she said, I really think you have Lyme disease. And she said, I have treated multiple patients like you where you are totally healthy. One day, like you feel like you're on top of the world, you're traveling, you're hanging out, living your best life. And then suddenly
the brakes slam.
It just breaks slam. And it's like this horrific car accident that you're just trying to get out of. And sure enough, that same day we did the lab work. So she said, I'm going to do the lab work. It may take some time to come back. And she did a battery of this lab work because she's very precise.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, on point with that stuff. And it was about December. It was right before Christmas, like December 15th or 16th. She called me up on the phone and she said the lab work came in and you are highly positive for Lyme disease.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you right there? Just
go ahead.
As you continue your journey and sharing your story with us, what would have happened if you didn't find the right doctor at that time?
What would have happened is what's happening to thousands of people out there right now. And this is what gets me very emotional. There are thousands of people out there who don't know they have Lyme disease. And they are going from doctor to doctor to doctor. And then they get that misdiagnosis that looks just like the illness or disorder. An example is I did meet a woman who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and was treated for 10 years. 10 years, MS. She said on her 10th year, like 10 or 11 years, she said that, you go in for your brain, the brain and spine MRI. They just want to see how things are going. And they thought the machine was broken. So they went back and did another MRI of her. Her brain was completely clear. There were no lesions, no inflammation of the brain. And then they said, okay, well, let's look at her central nervous, like her spine. Let's do a spinal tap because, I had to get a spinal tap done too. There's a test they do to see a certain band. If it's positive in the band, they sometimes go based off that band. They say, this band is positive, and that's, a lot of folks who have multiple sclerosis and other central nervous system disorders have that positive band. And hers was showing up as a negative. It was like she was cleared suddenly of MS, but she still felt terrible. So that was the other thing. Okay, so this can't be MS because, So, and even the neurologist felt horrible because, the lesions were like the pattern of MS. So it wasn't like he was purposely misdiagnosing her. It was what he was trained to do. And like, he's like, this is what it looks like, and I'm looking at your brain and your brain is completely clear. Like it is healed. Like I'm not seeing signs. And he actually said, you need to see your primary care doctor. She said, no, I'm firing that doctor because that couldn't even pick up on what was wrong with me. So she just started from scratch and she went online to like look up all her symptoms and everything started going back to Lyme disease, co-infections. She found a support group. Through a support group, she found a doctor that treated her. And then within like the course of like 2 to 3 years, she was treated for Lyme disease and was in remission. But it was after 10 to 11 years of being treated for something she never had and was still feeling horrible. And, even over time, they said her brain the lesions and stuff were clearing up, but it was still the lesions that were left were still showing this pattern of MS. But when those lesions cleared, there's nothing else to point to say she has MS. All the blood, everything was coming back negative. So there are thousands, probably millions globally, who are misdiagnosed and they're being treated for something they don't even have. That's what would have happened to me. I would have been treated for something I didn't have. I would have probably been treated for MS because that was let's look at her brain, because the brain shows this, the central nervous system shows this. And there were actually neurologists. I went to one neurologist who didn't know Lyme disease.
Right.
And then he said, well, I'm going to treat you, I'm not going to treat you, but I'm going to do all the tests that a neurologist would do. I'm going to test your nerves, this, that, and the third. We're going to do a spinal tap, do another MRI. But I'm going to, this is a great doctor. He said, I don't know Lyme disease, but I'm going to find a neurologist that does. And he did. And he referred me to that neurologist. And that was the one that picked up, it was like a marathon. He picked up the torch from where the last neurologist left off and said, okay, I'm going to now take off where you left off. You did all the tests for me. So now I could just look at all these tests and talk to her integrative health doctor and see what this is. And he's the one that ruled out MS. And he's the one that actually will turn the computer screen around and show you what a brain looks like that has MS and what my brain looked like. And then he's showing you, he wants you to see what he sees, which is, I really commend him on that. So, but that's what would have happened to me. I would have fallen into that really dark hole of being treated for something I didn't have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also want to welcome one of the friends of the Dr. Vibe Show, Marlon Steven.
Hey.
Great to see you as always, Marlon. Yeah, and folks, if you're watching live, please make comments, have questions. Serena's here to serve you. Nolan says, I think she loves doctors like that. I guess that doctor who basically started the turnaround for you. She loves those type of doctors.
Yeah, I have a team of doctors. I have a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a nutritionist, integrative health doctor, naturopathic doctor, a neurologist, and
you got a football team.
I have a football team, and I have a physical therapist, and I have other folks. I have massage therapists because you need all of this. You need some massage therapy,
right?
But yeah, I have a football team, and it took time to put that team together because I had to fire some people. I had to fire a guy last summer after me and you had our conversation.
Yeah. I
had yet another run-in with a doctor who wanted to go back to the MS misdiagnosis. He really wanted to, he was a neurologist because unfortunately my neurologist of several years, my insurance changed. That's a big thing with people that have any type of illness and sickness. Your insurance changes. You have doctors you've had for years, and now they can't serve you anymore because they can't accept your insurance. And unfortunately, my neurologist is not a private practice. He's underneath a hospital system. So it's not to override the system. He's tried. Let's just say that he's tried. But the beautiful thing about him is he said, wherever you go, he tried to refer me to other neurologists that also know Lyme disease, but they no longer accepted the insurance I had, only a secondary insurance. So the one I ended up with last summer was terrible. He was terrible. I'll say for the record, he was terrible. And what he did do for me was I needed an MRI of my brain and spine. I hadn't gotten one since spring of 2018. So last time we talked, Dr. Vibe, I hadn't gotten one because of the pandemic. So I had gotten one literally that August. And, the good news was my brain and spine is what you call stable. So there were no changes from 2018 to 2021. And you like to have a nice, quiet, stable brain, as they call it. And between 2017 and 2018, as a neurologist pointed out to me, my brain did some healing between 2017 and 2018. They said, whatever you did that year, your brain, something happened and your brain healed up some. I said, that was actually the year a very stressful job let me go. And when they let me go, more healing was able to happen. So stress can really harm us with Lyme disease and anybody, but those with chronic illnesses, autoimmune disorders, anything of that nature, stress can really kill us, literally, if we let it. It could kill us faster than the average person, but that's what happened in 2017. I was let go from a job, and I missed my friends there and folks, but I was able to heal up some more. I felt the healing happening. So this doctor last summer was saying, he was very argumentative. And I told him, well, I have Lyme disease. I have all my paperwork. I have my CDs in hand. And I said, my neurologist of so many years said, he would love to talk to you on the phone. He's been treating me since 2013. And this doctor was trying to take me off of stuff that helped heal my body. Well, I'm not going to prescribe this to you. I'm not going to give this to you because I don't do that. I was like, well, you don't need to do that. I have other doctors that do that. I need you to stay in your lane and focus on my brain and central nervous system. But do not go back to the misdiagnosis of MS. So he was so adamant that it was MS that he put it on my charts through this hospital system here in Northern Virginia. Now, every time you pull up my charts, they don't see Lyme disease first. They see MS because he didn't take it off my charts. So that's what happens with a multitude of us with Lyme disease. They want to just prove that they're right and put stuff on there even though it's wrong. So yeah.
Long journey.
It's been a journey, and then after that we'll talk about this because we were talking about COVID last year, and if I knew anyone personally that had COVID and Lyme, so now I can say I do because I had it. So it was not COVID's not a joke. But I was like, last summer I was just saying I don't know anybody with Lyme and COVID, and now I can say, yeah, that was me. That was the Omicron wave that happened. So it was quite a journey from last summer since we talked till now.
Yeah.
I'm like, so much has happened just in a year. Just in a year. Yeah.
Nice. You have a young son. Well, I'd say a growing son.
I
know. How has he weathered this storm?
My son, we'll call him Jay. That's another thing now. He's getting older, so now he likes the nicknames. So, people call him Jay. And, I have someone special in my life. He's nicknamed him Jay Money. So he's like, yeah, Mom, I'm Jay Money. I'm Jay. I'm like, oh, gosh, here we go. So he's 10. And I tell people he's had to mature faster, I think, than the average child because he has a mother with a condition, with a pre-existing. He was only 1. He was only 13 months old when I got bitten. So the majority of his life, I've had Lyme disease. 90-something% of his life, I've been battling Lyme disease. So that's all he's ever known. So, he knows how to now say things differently because he used to tell doctors, oh, yeah, I'm not afraid of needles because my mom does a lot of needles. And I'm like, yeah, let's just say that a little differently, okay? But he's seen all the blood work. He's seen the IV treatments. He's seen when I was sick, when I had COVID, it was only 2 of us in this apartment. Mm-hmm. And I had friends that would drop off stuff and they had to leave. They couldn't stay here and be with us. So it was a few days where he was taking care of me. He was warming up soup on the stove and microwaving food for me and making me tea and making sure I have water. And he's 10, but he knew I couldn't even get out the bed. I was really sick with COVID for 10 straight days. And thank God I'm vaccinated. I don't think, if I was not vaccinated, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation right now. But, and I didn't get a chance to get a booster at the time because I was due for the booster that month. And that's when I had gotten COVID. Yeah, the
Oh boy.
Omicron variant that just knocked the wind out of so many people at the same time. So yeah, and talking to other Lyme warriors out there, it's what we call each other, Lyme warriors. It's a battle, and having what's called a long haul symptom. I have one particular long haul symptom of COVID that is not quite gone away, and I'm like, I don't need anything else to be added to what I'm going through. So yeah, it's quite the journey. It is quite it's a lot. It's really a lot that we go through in the Lyme disease world.
How has treatment and accessibility to doctors changed over the years in regards to Lyme disease?
There's some, like I said, there's some who genuinely believe in Lyme disease. They are the ones I take my hat off to. If they can't figure it out, like the first neurologist said, I'll pass the torch on to someone who does, and I will help you find that someone. Those doctors I commend. I wish there were more of them. So then you have the doctors where you have a lot of practitioners. So we have a lot of holistic practitioners. I have a lot of holistic practitioners on my team. And you have the naturopathic doctors, the nutritionists, the herbalists. And the one things that they fight with also is insurance to cover stuff for us. So they're fighting the battle with us. They're trying to they know what we need done, but they're trying to make sure it's covered so we don't get a bill for like thousands of dollars in the mail. But you still have this divide. Like I was saying last summer, this neurologist who would not believe a word out my mouth. Well, I believe you had Lyme disease, but I really think you have MS right now. I really think you've always been dealing with it, but it's just an oversight. And he was really ready to like prescribe me medications that I did not need. So then we brought in another neurologist on his team who's like the neutral person. And that's what you need, is the neutral person who's like brand new set of eyes, who will see the whole picture and say, I don't believe in putting you on stuff if you're actually getting better. Why would we put you on stuff and your brain's been healing, you've been healing? And she said, I don't think you have MS. I'm in agreement with your neurologist out of DC. This is central nervous system Lyme disease or co-infections. And it's just going to take time to get through it.
Knowledge is saying, what's the treatment for it?
Oh my. So all of us are so unique in our treatments. None of us have the same treatments. It's not like we can say, I'm going to go to the doctor. Like the initial, you'll hear like the initial if you go on Google, and it'll say, oh, do 6 weeks of doxycycline or 10 weeks or whatever, and you'll feel better. Mm-hmm. And those are from people who might have like got the fresh bite and caught it right away. And even then, it doesn't work for a lot of people. It really just depends on the tick, the bacteria load they're carrying, the co-infections they're carrying. It also depends on just how you're made up, your genetics. Are you in good shape or are you not in good shape? In my case, physically, I was in amazing shape. I was a marathon runner. Mentally and emotionally, I was beneath the curve. I lost my mother in 2010. I lost my sister in 2007. I became a mother in 2011, and that was a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I became a mother because of a horrible breakup that happened while I was pregnant. So I was grieving a lot. So that is why I think the Lyme disease, it manifested so greatly in my body, even though physically I was doing really well, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, psychologically, I was plummeting. And I was just trying to like keep my head above water every day from all the grief and all the blues I was going through, and going through stuff without my mother and my confidant and and like helping my grandmother who was alive at that time. Like she lost her daughter, and just trying to be strong for her and all this stuff happening. So long story short, our treatments look very, very different. My treatment was, we tried a boatload of antibiotics. It didn't work. every antibiotic I got on, I had the severe adverse reactions like that will put you in the ER. So the ER too many times, I didn't want to see it again over some antibiotics. So we went the route where I got 14 months of IV treatments. Please count it, 14 months. And I got 2 IVs a week for like several months. And it went to like 1 IV a week to like 1 every other week. Those IV treatments, we tried some antibiotic IV treatments, and that didn't work. I tried Rocephin. Some people do great on Rocephin.
Mm-hmm.
I did not. So we actually did vitamin IV infusions, and I also did hydrogen peroxide infusions. I did that twice a week. I also did a lot of detoxification of the body, colonics, colon hydrotherapy, ionic foot baths, infrared saunas to detoxify the body and get those toxins out. So we're breathing in, that's a whole show in itself. We're breathing toxins, we're eating food that's inflaming our system. That's the other thing. I had to completely change my diet, completely.
Right.
Gluten-free, dairy-free, alcohol-free, low to no refined sugars.
How radical? How much of a challenge was that, especially in the early stages of the journey?
You know, they tell you to not, especially the dietary restrictions. You shouldn't do that cold turkey. But because I was so sick, I had to completely cold turkey off of dairy, gluten. The red meat was already messing with me, so I already voluntarily didn't eat red meat or pork. But yeah, I had to just cold turkey. And that was like my whole refrigerator and freezer and pantry. And I was a wine connoisseur. Loved wine, had different wines in my house. No, I'm not an alcoholic. No, don't put that out there. But I loved my wine. And I remember calling friends saying, I can't drink alcohol right now, not knowing right now would be probably forever. I can't tell you how many friends were at my doorstep so fast to get my wine. It was just so they just grabbed the wine, they grabbed the Ben and Jerry's, they grabbed all the
one hand ice cream, the other hand.
Yeah, I was like, okay, and got rid of that like quickly. Like the same day I said, please take the wine. People were at my doorstep that night taking my wine. So
actually, Nolans has a question asking, what's the treatment for Lyme disease?
So my treatment was getting back, because it's a loaded question, Margaret. So it's different with everybody. I know someone who was able to just do straight antibiotics and he was fine. He also did detoxification. But what I'm talking to you about is the treatment. 14 months of IVs, detoxification, dietary restrictions. That is my treatment. So, and then a lot of herbs, a lot of supplements, vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, molybdenum, CoQ10. I do like an apple cider vinegar flush in the morning with ginger, lemon. And this is my this is every day, y'all. Like every day I do this flush. I got a multitude of supplements I take. There's certain herbs that I take that help to attack the bacteria and parasites and co-infections that are still in my body. So that's my treatment. The next person might say, oh, I tried the IVs, they didn't work for me. This is how I do it. So they'll have like their whole list of, how they treat. And that a third person may say, well, Serena and this person does this, but I can't do that. So there's no cookie cutter. There's no like cookie cutter treatment to say you do this and your Lyme disease will be gone, done. Like I said, some people could do the several weeks of doxycycline and they're fine. But there's thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us that could not do that and we're still sick. And I mean, in the United States, there's like close to 476,000 of us that have Lyme disease. And those are the ones who are diagnosed. We're not talking about the ones who are not diagnosed yet. Yep. And then women, that's a whole other topic because now I'm getting older. I was trying to beat this thing before I went to perimenopause or before cycles change. Mm-hmm. So now we got the hormonal imbalance on top of the chronic Lyme disease. So I got all that going on for me. So, and a lot of women were dealing with the hormonal shifts.
Yep.
And are like my Lyme disease symptoms flare with my PMS. So I don't have to look at a calendar. I know my Aunt Flo's coming because my symptoms are flaring. So I'm doing now different kinds of treatments to help balance my hormones and to try to get the cycle and other stuff under control to help the Lyme disease symptoms stay at bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other type of treatment. But wow. I tell people, like, some things I do, I tell people this every day. I have to keep my stress very low.
How do you do that on a consistent basis?
I have to protect my peace. I protect my peace by any means necessary. I'm like a Malcolm X when it comes to my peace. By any means necessary, I will protect my peace and my joy. And that meant when I got Lyme disease, I got a rude awakening when I lost some friends who just didn't want to be at my side anymore. And that's fine. I didn't need them. Or those who had nothing good to say. You know, oh, Serena, you don't look yourself. Oh, you lost so much weight. Oh, you know, you look like this. I don't need you to tell me how bad I look, okay? So and it's hard because some of those folks were in my life for a long time. And God like pruned them out. He pruned my circle of friends. And that's part of it. Stressful jobs will take anything out of people. They will take your joy.
Sales.
Just, you know. And I was in a nonprofit job. I was like, oh, your job looks so beautiful. Where you work at, so that's the facade they want you to see because it's a major performing arts center in the Washington, D.C. area. I was under lots of duress, lots of stress, poor pay, managers who just were not for me. And that was killing me.
Mm.
So that, you know, even down to like my son, you know, and telling his teachers, I'm very transparent with his teachers. I've been blessed to have such great teachers in his life. Mm-hmm. But if someone on his team is not working for us, they have to go. Because now you're causing him stress, which is causing me stress, and that's a no-no. So I have to be very protective of my peace and my joy. I'm a writer, you know, for those, I'm a published author. Poetry and writing is my escape. You know, I'm a prayer warrior. I pray. I'm a Christian. I really had to dive deep.
I'll stamp all those things. I've known this lady for a while now. So what she's saying, I'm not joking aside. This is a real deal. You. Serena is the real deal with everything she's saying. I will vouch for her 100% on that.
You have to protect your peace because when that job let me go in 2017, I saw the damage it was doing after the job let me go. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the fatigue symptom went away after the job let me go. And it's like, it wasn't so much the Lyme, it was the Lyme, but it was the job that was making that symptom hold on to me. And then my brain physically healed more. My brain physically healed more after that job let me go. And I mean, Lyme disease is what got me into my profession as a health and wellness coach.
See, it made your testimony.
Yeah, it redirected my whole path. I'm still a servant in my community, but it's through the health and wellness arena.
Helena has a question. Serena, do you advise people who run in wooded areas to wear a specific type of clothing or colors to not attract ticks?
That's a great question. Ticks really don't care what clothes you wear. It's the scent. So I'm also into essential oils. I'm a wellness advocate for doTERRA essential oils. So I learned a lot about essential oils during my whole journey. And there's certain essential oils that bugs, period, don't like peppermint, and you mix it with like some lemongrass and some other stuff, and you can kind of put together a concoction. And actually now you can buy it blended. It's called a blended essential oil. And it will keep certain bugs away from you. Now, ticks have a way of just once they get on you, you know, they can be embedded on your arm and your leg. So clothing to wear when you're out there in a wooded area, I know it's getting hot out here, but you may see some runners and walkers, and people may say, aren't they hot with all that on? They may have on long sleeve dry fit. Now, I tell people, put on dry fit. Dry fit is a material that wicks away the sweat. It's a very light material, but it wicks away the sweat. So the sweat's not really on your body. It's not clenching to your body. But you want to wear light colors. That way, if you wear like whites, lights, anything that gets on the shirt or on your clothing, you can see it easier. For me that day, I had on a t-shirt, and my running pants at the time were black. So if that tick had gotten on my leg, I wouldn't have seen it because my pants were black. So I tell people wear light colors from head to toe. Make sure if you're going to wear running socks, again, dry fit, a lot of us wear ankle socks. You could put I use essential oils to put on my body to deter bugs away from me. And then I do what's called a tick check afterwards. And that's even for people who are just laying in the grass, having like a get together with friends. Get out the grass and check yourself for anything that your eye can see. Because unfortunately, some ticks you cannot see. So just look at your arms, your legs, your ankles, check your neck, just see if you see anything. And then I tell people when you get home, take a shower. Just try to like wash it off. Don't say, oh, I'll just wait till later. No. But those are just some things you can do because there's a lot of people out there, they're hiking, and they love to do that. You shouldn't stop doing what you love to do for insects. But there's just ways you can, wear certain color clothes or wear certain items so you can see it more and prevent possibly getting bitten. Some clothes actually have DEET in them, is DEET.
Yes.
It's like I don't like DEET, but some of them have DEET in them, and as soon as a tick and DEET come in contact with each other, it kills the tick. So some people use bug spray with DEET in it. And that way, if a tick gets on you, they die. But I can't use like off and things like that because my senses are very heightened with Lyme disease. So fragrances, scents throw me off. And there's a lot of chemicals in those bug sprays and stuff. So there's natural things you can do to put on your skin that bugs don't like. And that will, a bug will say, oh, I got to get off of her, or that a bug will just die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is all like stuff I had to like educate myself. And I'm still educating myself every month. I'm online looking up stuff or, looking up stories. There's a new documentary out there. I have to look up the name again, but there's a new documentary about Lyme disease out there now. And, I talked to them on Instagram the other week, the producers, and they're really, talking to folks about, this is Lyme disease. This is what it is. So I'm glad that there are still people out there producing, spreading awareness and educating people about Lyme disease and using platforms like movies and podcasts and interviews to get the word out. The latest thing is, now the Biden administration is looking at people that have long haul COVID symptoms to be able to file disability for it. So now the Lyme disease community is saying, well, what about us with chronic Lyme disease? We've been dealing with this for years and years, and it's chronic, and some of us are just not well, but we're always getting denied disability. So now a lot of them are going back to the Hill, saying if you're going to do this for COVID, why not do it for Lyme disease and all these other, like lupus and everything else? If you're doing it for COVID, then do it for us too. Right. Because I was denied disability like 2-3 times. Jeez. They would not, even though I was like bedridden for like 4 weeks, they would not approve me.
How has the medical profession dealt with this over your journey? Are they getting better, still the same, or are they getting worse?
It depends. Like I said, that doctor last year, he was a wake-up call that there are still doctors out there. Because that was like a slap in my face when that neurologist was very argumentative with me and just blatantly was like, well, no, you need to be treated for MS and not Lyme disease anymore. I'm like, no, I have symptoms like left over there. I'm not in remission. That's what we say. We're not in remission from Lyme disease.
Right.
And he was just going back and forth with me, like arguing with me. And I told him, I'm uncomfortable with my insurance paying for you to argue with me. So this is over. Like this whole and I had to like cut the whole visit short. But there are still doctors out there that are like him. They will never wake up unless it happens. You don't want anything happening to their immediate circle or even to them, but that's what it may take for them to believe it.
Right.
Then you have those, like I was saying, like my team. They're the dream team. They are my dream team. They are my healers. I tell people, my integrative health doctor, I don't think I would be alive right now without her. She really did things for me miraculously. That team pulled together, and it wasn't just external stuff happening. It was, Serena, you need therapy. You need counseling. You need a grief group. We got to help heal you from the inside out. Right. So doctors who are going above and beyond their scope of work to help you heal. So those are out there. The struggle is that, getting back to the insurance companies, there are doctors who would love to like treat you underneath the moon, stars, and sky for things that will really help you. But they'll go to the insurance company and the insurance company will not authorize it. So now it's like, if she can't get this treatment, how is she supposed to get better? Or she get better faster. She had this treatment, but I will tell you, I went for broke. I mean, to the point where my SUV was paid off. I had to get a title loan on my SUV to pay for my treatments. I had to do it. I ran out of money. I went through my retirement, my savings, and I said, I have one asset, and that was my SUV. My grandmother, bless her heart, she was alive, helping me. I had some friends helping me. I was in friends' budgets for months. They would just cut me money to get to pay for my treatments. And you're trying to write it off as another thing. You're trying to write off stuff on your taxes. And now there's this ceiling that the IRS has, lovely IRS. And if you don't go above that ceiling, they throw you in what's called standard deduction. Well, okay, I want to write off all my stuff. So they're making it harder for you to like write off everything unless you're over the standard deduction, which is like $14,000.
Oh my. So
they throw you in this little box to write off your stuff. And then the insurance companies, the money you did pay out of pocket, you're trying to do a claim to get some of your money back. And they're not giving you all the money. So one time I went to get an MRI and they said, oh, your copay, because you haven't used up all your deductions or whatever in the year, the copay for the MRI would have been $1,000.
Oh, wow.
I was like, excuse me. And luckily that particular hospital system said, we have a foundation and you fall under the foundation category. And I was able to apply for like assistance, and they actually paid for the copay. My copay would have been $1,000. People don't have that. So that's the other thing when it comes to treatments. You're trying to get well. You're trying to treat yourself.
Yeah.
I've heard of people like getting second mortgages on their houses, putting their houses up on the market and then downgrading to a smaller house and using the equity from the old house to pay for their Lyme disease treatments, going through their children's college savings. I mean, it is something out. It's just thousands and thousands of dollars. And when you have people who try and tell you, oh, you should have planned better, your finances, if they would have been in better order, you would have been able to pay for all this. No, I'm talking to people who had all their stuff in financial order and they still went for broke. It is just because it's just a disease that's controversial. It's, a lot of insurance companies don't want to pick up the tab on your treatments, and you have doctors who they're trying to authorize things, and you have the doctors who don't want to authorize things because they don't believe you have Lyme disease to begin with. So it's constant battles. We're like putting out constant fires. But there are some amazing doctors out there, amazing doctors, and I'm thankful for them, and some of them will even talk to you across the country. They'll talk to you on Instagram or Facebook, and, they can't treat you, but they'll talk to you and say, maybe try this, or I know a doctor out by you over here. Contact them and tell them I referred you. So you do have some really great doctors who are in this with us, and a lot of holistic practitioners and medical practitioners that are not deemed as like doctors or PhDs, who are doing everything they can to treat people with Lyme disease, even down to one doctor in the Maryland area. His name is Greg Lee. His goal is, I can't treat 1 million people, but I can train doctors, and those doctors have their own. He has been, throughout this whole pandemic, has been doing free trainings for doctors, and even me. Like, I've been on his webinars every week for doctors to learn more about Lyme disease, because his goal is, I want to help treat 1 million people. I can't do that by myself, but I can train doctors, and I can teach them what I know about Lyme disease. And he's an hour and a half every week for almost the whole pandemic. He comes online and does these extensive trainings. So those are the ones that are out there. They're fighting for us, and I thank them. And they're not going to give up until hopefully there is a cure. But right now, there's no cure. There's no accurate testing. That's the other thing. As you could be false negative. I was, thank goodness, positive. But there's a lot of people who do the blood work and they come out negative. And that's where more misdiagnoses come from, because the bacteria can hide in other parts of your body that will not get to your bloodstream. It's a very smart and intelligent bacteria. So your blood work could be negative, but you can still have Lyme disease and not know it.
How has your son balanced your journey?
He's you asked me before. He's good. I think, he's getting older. He'll be 11. Mm-hmm. He's very protective. He is very protective of me. I call myself, there's some of us in the neighborhood, we call ourselves the mama bears. Like, don't make the mama bear come out, but he has his own little bear that comes out, and he will tell people, don't stress my mother. Don't make her sick. He will tell people that. And he's also one who I've had to teach him how to protect his peace. And at a young age, and that's a whole other topic, because I'm raising a Black boy. So I've had to teach him how to protect his peace on multiple levels. And but yeah, it's more than just a balancing act with just my journey. There's things that he takes on that I don't want him taking on, but he's an empath like me. So I don't have to say anything's wrong with me. He could just feel something's wrong with me. Mom, you're kind of sad today. Are you okay? Or you want to talk about it? And we'll talk about it. But I tell people there is power in therapy and counseling. Even, my son has counseling, and they said a lot of his counseling, he's brought me up, and how he was very scared during this pandemic for me. He said, I'm scared for my mother's life in this pandemic. I don't want to lose her. So that was his whole thing. He was virtual for almost 2 whole years. And, he didn't want to go back to school until he was fully vaccinated. So I was like, okay. So we made that agreement. But when there was nothing out there, and there were some times where I got very sick and didn't know what it was my hormones changing. I was going through a hormonal shift during the pandemic. I'm like, we're in COVID, and I'm in like a perimenopause pandemic. Okay. And I was getting sick not knowing that's what it was. So I can't tell you the multitude of COVID tests I got in 2020 because all that stuff would flare my Lyme symptoms. And one of my Lyme symptoms is shortness of breath.
Oh
So
my.
fortunately, that's like red alert for COVID. But he's, I just make sure that he stays a child. That's why he's in the other room gaming right now with his friends. And he had his first sleepover in 2 years, a few weeks ago for spring break. And we went to the zoo, and I do as much as I can with him.
Right on.
That's the way to keep his journey balanced as possible, because some parents throw their kids into the parental role. And I'm like, no, he's still a child. He still needs to be a child and have a childhood despite my medical condition.
Got it. Wow.
Yep.
Well, I think we're going to shut it down there because I think we got it all in.
And even more show topics to come, because there's just some stuff we can't even get into.
Get into. Just some closing words from you. Anything you'd like to leave our audience with, is not only this for this subject this month, but going forward.
Going back to protecting your peace and protecting your joy. The one thing I learned in this pandemic, and I will give a huge shout out. There was a writing class I took. So I'm an author, and iron sharpens iron, as our friend Nicole Waldron says.
Yes, iron sharpeners.
So I signed up for this class that my friend Chris Thomas facilitated here in the Maryland area, and it went virtual because pandemic hit. And it's called Writing to Wellness. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in this class. I'm going to write poetry, sharpen my tools here. That whole class shifted my healing. I didn't know there was still unaddressed open wounds I had that I just buried and tucked away deep inside me. And they came to fruition in this class. And this class was twice a month. So I realized I had a lot of healing I still had to do in regards to some stuff, especially on the relationship front that I was in with my son's father. There was just some unhealed wounds that I thought were just done with. And I had to really reset my boundaries again, because boundaries are so important. And that's with anybody out there listening to me. You may lose some people. There's some people that are just not good for you. They are toxic. And some of them don't mean to be toxic, but they are in so much pain that it just spills over into your life, and they don't want to see you happy. So I had to reset boundaries. I discovered more peace in this pandemic. I thought I was already at peace going into this pandemic. I'm at a whole different level of peace now. And it's because of I tell people, take advantage of classes. There's Writing the Wellness class, and that opened up, doors for other classes. And I really dove into my purpose. I love writing. I have my 4th book coming out late summer. It is
Congratulations.
Out. Yes, it's coming out. And that was able to get wrapped up in this pandemic. I was able to wrap up, my Lyme disease book. I'm flushing that out, my memoir. So I tell people, really don't put your purpose off. Don't say, I'll wait till I retire. I'll wait till I get a new job. I'll wait till I get money. Do it now. Do it scared. Do it broke. You can do it. I tell writers, you don't even need a notebook to write in. The woman who wrote Harry Potter was writing on napkins because she was so broke. She would write on napkins and read the stories off of napkins to her child. And then she wrote on paper. But she didn't have any money. But she had to start somewhere. So I tell people, start somewhere. Don't be afraid of those unaddressed wounds, those unhealed wounds. Call them for what they are and address them, so God can open up more doors for you. He can open up more joy and more peace and more dreams. because those doors cannot be opened if you're still in this place of pain and misery and unhealed wounds. And that helps people with their physical healing as well. You get those addressed, your physical wellness will start to catch up because now you're doing the internal work. So that's what I leave for people. And it's hard. It's not easy. Healing is not easy. You're unhashing, you're going back into time all over again, revisiting why you're in pain to begin with. But it has to be done. And I'm so glad I did the work. I'm so glad classes became available to me. I'm glad that I found a great therapist in this pandemic to help me address grief, especially when I lost Nana in the middle of all of this. I'm like, okay, now I lose my grandmother in the middle of all of this. This is too much. But I had the right tools in place to help me with the healing. I'm still out, it'll never be fully healing, full healing off of that loss. But it'll be easier to cope with her not being here, because she doesn't want to see me stressed out and in pain and hurt down here, but I tell people, do the work and just watch God work. You do your work, he will do his.
Okay. That is it. We're finishing it off on that. Another epic conversation here. If you want to find out more about Serena, I didn't have enough space to put all the things. So I put down what I could fit in. I thought what I thought was relevant. All the information to get a hold of her there is there.
And then the Facebook one is Divine Wryte Wellness. You got to add wellness.
I couldn't fit it on.
I know it's probably like on the red part.
couldn't fit.
But
there's too many.
Social media, just Divine Wryte versus Instagram. You can find me on YouTube, Pinterest, Twitter, you name it. Yeah.
Divine Wryte.
SerenaWills.com and DivineWryte.com. Yep. Find me on one of those and it'll lead to the rest.
Excellent. Well, like we say, thank you for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing, welcome. You and your son and your community. Always appreciate you having on, and I know there's more to come. More good to come.
So yes, and thank you. We still have an overdue conversation of foodies.
Yes. Yes, food truck girl. Food truck lady. Well, I'm going to have to bring on Dr. Tachi and you for that, I guess.
Tachi on for that one.
All right. Well, you know what? Well, we're recording this live we're on May 17th, but all this week I'm hosting IG Lives and stuff on this platform to celebrate BuyBlacks.com, Black Restaurant Week 2022 spring edition. So yes, the food is rich and the food is good.
And that show you had last night was epic.
Oh, Janice. Ooh.
I love the whole show, the ice cream, the sweet and
ice, yes.
Nice. I am your taste tester when you get vegan and gluten-free ice cream. Me and my son, we're signed up.
Yeah, Andrew and Janice, again, and catch the replay if you can, and please. They both know a lot, but Janice knows her stuff. Yeah, she it doesn't matter what side of the border, she has the core principles. If you want to meet someone who can help you in regards to getting your food product from an ideation to shelf, I don't care where you are, she has some basic principles that you need to know.
She's your woman. Yep.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right, another epic conversation here. It's the Dr. Vibe Show. I'm the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Ethnic Media Association. Let me correct that. And also hosts of the upcoming The Dad Central show, where we feature dads and fathers from all around the world. It's the only online show of its type that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. So finish off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace. And also, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless. Peace well. Keep the faith and walk good.